Okay, we'll switch in English. As the presentation will be recorded, we want to provide this video for the maximum of people. So sorry for that, I know that we are in France, but let's keep it like this. So we will speak about FinOps and GreenOps, the way to get cloud consumption under control. And I think this topic is what is the most important in all the topics that we have, not necessarily about FinOps, but more about GreenOps. So my name is Benjamin, I'm Cycloid founder. I'm with Olivier that will show you how does it look like. And we are really happy to present you this as these brand new features that we provided to all our partners and customers. So we'll speak a little bit about cloud consumption, of course, FinOps, GreenOps. I won't detail everything, and then you will finish with a live demonstration. So first of all, as you all know, and this is something which is quite important to mention, cloud consumption. Today, there is an average of cloud waste, which is 26 billion euros in 2021. So I mean, everyone, including us, definitely, we are over-provisioning some infrastructures. And I think this is something which is quite bad. So we need to improve this, of course, in terms of financial aspect, but definitely more in terms of environment impact. The challenge that we face around cloud consumption today, it's how do you shift left? It means to empower dev people and end user. And even us as a DevOps, it's quite complicated and FinOps for us to handle everything. So imagine if we want to empower developers. How to keep track of resources, cloud and location used per project in a context of multi-cloud. We have some problem when it's one cloud, but when it's a multi-cloud approach, it's quite difficult. How do we bring flexibility while avoiding governance and GreenOps FinOps? I mean, this is quite a huge challenge. How do we minimize, and this is definitely the way of how we do today, the reverse engineering of our cloud invoice to avoid too high invoices. Today, we have the bill, and then we try to reverse engine to make sure that we optimize the way how we do. So how do you inform, operate, and optimize FinOps and GreenOps in a context of multi-cloud? This is all the challenge, and we can mention quite a lot that we face when it comes to FinOps and GreenOps. What is FinOps? I like to re-mention it because we speak about it quite a lot, and there is some people that take care about to define it. Made by the FinOps Foundation. FinOps is an evaluating cloud FinOps management discipline and cultural practice. We always try to forget about this cultural practice that enables organization to get maximized business value by helping engineering, finance, technology, and business team to collaborate on data-driven spending decisions. So I know that we love to get focused on data, but sometimes, as we all know, we forget it, right? So, the cloud consumption and FinOps. It's, as we all said, and as we all know, it's a cultural practice. How to give the keys to end users to make better decisions. It's everyone's responsibility for cost management. Nothing gets lost in translation. And this is quite a challenge, as we mentioned, when we are developer. We are not always the most informed when it comes to cloud cost and not the thing that we already take care enough, right? And by the way, I didn't thank you to start to be here at 5:30. I think it thank you to be here because I know that there is quite a lot of people that moved. So if we come back to this cloud consumption, we need to estimate before, which is quite important. How do you estimate cloud cost before it deploys? How do you compare cost from deployment to deployment and see the difference? And we need also to verify after. How do we visualize infrastructure's cost over time? How do you filter report per project? And how do you make sure that you compile with all your cloud provider? So estimate it before and verify after. What is about GreenOps? The FinOps Alliance, which is quite interesting to see that it's a FinOps that defines GreenOps, right? Because, I mean, it could be another institution, but let's say that we speak about FinOps. FinOps Alliance defines GreenOps as an operating model, so we also speak about culture, that encapsulates all the effort done to reduce the carbon footprint of the resources running on the cloud by the cloud user. So it has said also by the FinOps alliances. So it's, as we all know, how do we use better infrastructures, right? And less infrastructures. The cloud consumption, it's even a big problem that we might think. Today, everybody knows that it's about flight and the commercial flight that is impacting quite a lot our carbon footprint. But this is wrong. I mean, the most impacted on this topic is the waste on cloud carbon footprint. It's between 2.5 and 3.7 of all global greenhouse gas emission. So it's even bigger than the commercial flights, which is the one that we speak quite more. And I do think it's even more, because I mean, let's see how many usage do we have in terms of cloud. It's quite huge. So it's something that we definitely need to take care of, because it's about our survival, right? And the survival of our children. So we all know when we speak about GreenOps, there is always this kind of habit to speak about greenwashing, right? We all love to speak about GreenOps, but when it comes to, how do we do it concretely, it's even more difficult. We believe, and I think it's quite true, that we should make green IT part of an overall corporate sustainability strategy. We'll all see with enterprise and a lot of companies that start to implement this, but we also see that sustainability is sometimes not at the right level that it should be in terms of organization. It should be definitely as high as possible, because this is one of our most important challenges. What about cloud carbon footprint? I try to dig a little bit on this. We speak about challenge and goal and vision. On our side, and to be completely transparent, we see that the cloud provider carbon footprint reporting goes in the right way, but we didn't put on our side everything on API from cloud provider. For multiple reasons. First of all, there is some that doesn't exist for the major one, and for the one that have produced some cloud carbon footprint API, as you maybe all know, there is 3 scopes: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. The scope 1 is what do you produce, the scope 2 is what do you produce internally, and the scope 3 is what others that you are using are producing, right? And we never know, including cloud provider, they don't know what is the scope 3 approach about their partners and that they're working with. So I think it's quite challenging. That is why on our side, we didn't took this API from cloud provider to calculate the cloud carbon footprint. There is also other reason. It's generally non-published and proprietary calculation. So it's really easy to make it, as a black box. It's also the fact that global figures miss business dimension for deep analysis of carbon emission. And there is this kind of top-down methodology where we strongly believe that there is some better way to calculate this cloud carbon footprint that I will present you a little bit later. Our goal in vision is to help anyone which are using this cloud carbon footprint take tangible actions to reduce their cloud emission. I don't think people doesn't care about this topic. I think there are sometimes lack of visibility and what is the concrete numbers that we speak about. Especially when we speak about hybrid cloud topic, it's quite a challenge, and even deep dive into a project, environment, and so on. It's really important on our side to don't make the same problem and the same mistake that we have done on FinOps, which is we've built some software on FinOps when something has been already deployed, but it will be the same. The carbon impact will already have been done. It's important to start at the beginning, from the design phase, to make sure that on our side we speak about infrastructures layer, but there is also the application layer, to make sure that we can create some quota management on this carbon footprint, that we evangelize people to make sure that also on the beginning, doesn't matter what the tools that they are using, they are aware about their impact when they want to use this cloud provider. We want also to complement cloud provider, because I think it should be a partnership, because as you all know, there is a lot of investment on their side also. So it's important that on our side, we strongly believe that it should be an open mind, a community driven, such as open source, where customers and partners can contribute. It can't be a black box, not on this level. it should be, and I think it's not what will help people to trust on this topic. So the carbon footprint methodology that we took is quite simple. This is an open, public, open source project. So you can start to use it without waiting anything on Cycloid. It's a cloud carbon footprint methodology. How do we calculate it? So it has been started by US company, including HC Cloud G-Wells, which is one of the major retailer in US, and also some public organization, some people that open all how they calculate this cloud carbon footprint. So sorry to deep dive a little bit in this, but it has to be explained. So first, we do calculate the resources usage, in terms of vCPU, memory, storage, networking. Then you need to multiply by the cloud energy convection factor to allow you to have this energy factor. Then you need to calculate, you multiply it by the power usage effectiveness, which is per data center. You need to calculate how much, what do you consume, especially for the service part. And then you have the green, you need to multiply by the green emission factors. The green emission factors is how do you calculate, how do you transform in terms of CO2, everything that you have calculated before. And those, what is really important, are something which is based on public data. And this is something which is changing everything. Because it's not someone that says something, it's something that can be challenged. And this is the same principle as open source part. It should be challenged, and it should be open to anyone to be able to contribute. And then all this formula has to be embedded, has to be added with embodied emission. The embodied emission is what is the cost of the servers that you need to produce it. For example, when you produce a service, there is some calculation that need to be calculated to make sure that when you buy a service, it needs to be count, right? It's not only the service, it's the service itself when you produce it. So I do invite, so on our side, we have made some various benchmark to try to use. I know that there is also some French initiative. If it's take the same approach, which is open by design, open source, and that we can challenge data, I mean, it doesn't matter the way of how you calculate it. This is really important. Take it. And on our side, this formula will be open to our customers, so if they want to change it, if they want to modify it, because it's not something perfect, and no one has something perfect, then be it, there is no issue for that. Are FinOps and GreenOps working hand in hand then? Yes, it's called cloud sustainability, as you all know, and what we always take in terms of recommendation is remember that we should take tangible action. There is a lot of marketing around that, but I think there is some simple fact where everybody, including us, don't take enough time to do this simple step. First, optimize the usage of cloud resources, such as right-sizing, switch off resources during idle hours. Choose a region which utilizes renewable energy. We start now to have a lot of information to be capable to know what is the region that we want to use. Use and develop energy-efficient architecture for the workloads. There is also partners that we are working on that take care about the application side. Of course, there is the infrastructure side, but it should be a combination of application and infrastructures, the way of how we developed and the way of how we manage infrastructures. We should use intelligent and cloud-native solutions, such as event-driven, serverless technology, and so on, the ones that are using the less resources. And we should use compute-efficient languages, such as C, C++, Rust, etc., to reduce usage of compute resources. There is a really nice article that has been written by this, made by Olivier. We put in the link, and I do invite you. They made a strong statement on this to help people that want to take care about those topics. At the end, on our side, there is a lot of people that speak about platform engineering, which is quite interesting. You know, how do you help developers, solution architect, ops, and DevOps working all together to be as much as efficient and to simplify the capability to use tools and cloud. I think we don't speak enough about FinOps and GreenOps, and this should be part of the carbon footprint. of the way to control all our resources and the way of how we use it. Doesn't matter if you use Cycloid or if you do it internally, it should be part of your overall strategy to design the way of how you calculate FinOps and GreenOps. And unfortunately for us, the premium software which are working on the FinOps part doesn't innovate anymore because they have own bill acquired, and now it's not anymore a question of investment, it's a question of rentability. And unfortunately for us, the one that was at the beginning the more advanced on the FinOps didn't care at all about GreenOps, and it didn't speak about it. And I think it's a mistake. It's a strategic mistake, and it's of course a customer mistake. But this is my thought. So on our side, platform team, they should care about this, and they should make sure that the end user are empowered through an internal developer platform. It should be something as simple as it is and be part of the overall project. And now I think it's better to let Olivier present how factually does it look like. So just to speak a little bit about this, we have took 6 months to work on the R&D, including the UX UI, and how we do help people be capable to calculate this carbon footprint, and how do we help this end user be aware about those infrastructures. So Olivier, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Benjamin. So let's go to the practical demonstration now. So first of all, a little agenda. I'm going to present you the vision and approach we have in practical terms. Then I'm going to present you demonstration on the FinOps solution, and then we move to GreenOps, then because we are integrating that very closely with the FinOps tool as well. It goes really together. So concerning the vision, so the vision we have is that first of all, it's FinOps. So FinOps, we need to have some billing data. We need to import as any FinOps solution. We need to go through that, of course, to have cost analysis, to understand how the budget is spent through your different cloud providers. And for that, we, of course, ingest billing data. That's the analyze part. Then, when you have done that, the second step is to govern, because you need to control how your budget is spent. You need to have a 360 view on how your project, your environment, your different business unit teams and members are spending your budget across all these assets. And then here we are going to talk about budget management on public cloud, but we are going to also talk about quota management for private cloud as well. I'm going to demonstrate that as well. And the third step is, of course, the link with the automation, right? Because we also have a self-service portal, and we strongly believe we have to close the loop, meaning when an end user consume infrastructure on public and private cloud, it has to be according to the governance, according to what my team is able to consume, according to the budget, and so on. And then we have, for public cloud, cost estimation, and make sure it's in the budget. And for private cloud, it's the quota management that enter here. Here is how it translates in the solution. So this is an overall view of, for example, a date range between September and November here on a weekly granularity. And then you have a breakdown per cloud provider here. And then, of course, this is quite important to have, sorry, it's quite small. I'm going to try to go a little bit bigger. So here you have the top projects that are actually spanned with the associated cost and the provider that you actually use for the different projects. If I click on one, for example, this is our website, for example, you have all the services associated to this particular project. So, and this project has been deployed with the self-service portal, of course. So if I want to group by, for example, environment here, I'm going to see that my production environment consume this amount here, and the staging environment consume is more variable along the different weeks. And for each environment, I can subgroup, for example, with resource type. So you have really the vision of the automation, the instances, and the specific instances are linked actually together with this FinOps tool. So you understand, for example, if you have a variation of plus 20% from between that day and the next day, then why do you have this 20% increase? And it's going to tell you and make a link with the asset inventory to say, yes, because this is what has happened in terms of automation for this particular project, for example. And this is where we have our inventory here. So this is where you can keep track of all the assets that have been deployed by the automation and understand with a fine-grained approach, why do you have this increase, for example. To actually configure, it's very simple. You have just to create an account, and this is actually billing data that actually you can import from any cloud provider. So, for example, if you want to import from GCP, let's say, you have a project ID, then it's the billing data from a billing data set, and then you import a table, and then you are going to have this nice graph that shows here. Okay, so we have seen the analyze part. Now, in terms of governance, this is where you need to actually configure the quota. So in terms of quota, we have this resource tool here, and quota is about private cloud, right? So VMware, for example, Nutanix, OpenStack, and so on. So first of all, you need to declare how much resource do you have on your private cloud. And then you need to configure how much quota do you want to allocate to your different teams. So for example, here we have a sales team. We allocate different memory, storage, and CPU consumption for this particular team. And then you can follow the usage of this different quota here in this dashboard here. So that is how you can do the quota. And then the last piece is about the deployment itself. So here I can deploy, for example, a project. Let's deploy a project. So I'm going to deploy a project that is on a public cloud, for example. So public cloud will be more about, of course, currency and budget management. And I'm going to show you also we can estimate the cost before the deployment. Let's deploy, for example, a service that is an Nexus repository. That's just an example, of course. And here we are going to deploy it. So this is the self-service portal, as you understand. We can deploy a dev environment, for example, on, for example, AWS. And here we can deploy on using a T3A X large. So this is the user is going to define all this. And we can take, for example, 200 gigabytes of storage. And if we configure this way, then it is going to cost $141 per month. So, and we can understand if that fits into the budget or not. Of course, if I change as a user the configuration here, I can update, and it is going to say, okay, now it's not 141 with these new settings, but it is going to be like about $31 per month in this case. And then we just have to click on this and run the project, and it's going to create the project and just create the infrastructure, and you are going to be charged, of course, according to this estimation. And you can then find it in the cost analysis tool that we have seen just before. If we do like now private cloud, so this is the same principle. But in the form, you are not going to have instance type, for example. You are going to have more CPU, memory, and disk, and that you can see here on the right. You have the quota according to the quota you have set. So I have declared I am, for example, in this sales team. I have this amount of quota, and this you have 3 green check here. That means this configuration fits into the quota, right? So you are allowed to deploy it. So this is how we close the loop regarding this consumption here, which then goes to the billing data in turn. So regarding the GreenOps, now we are, so if you enable GreenOps in this FinOps tool, then the screen looks like more this. So you have a carbon footprint data with the evolution, and you have the provider breakdown as well, depending on AWS, GCP, and Azure, for example, over time. And you have not only the electric consumption, but you have also, of course, the carbon emission, in addition of the budget spent. So you have the 3 dimensions here in one graph, which is pretty handy. Of course, you have still the top project and any project that you have deployed through the self-service portal, and you can follow not only the cost, but you can also follow, of course, the electricity consumed and the carbon emitted. So this is the detailed report now in terms of FinOps and GreenOps that we are merging together, right? So, and we have here, first of all, more tangible, way of saying what you are consuming in this particular time frame that we have set here. And here we say that it's, for example, the equivalent of one flight between Paris to London. So for the user, it's more understandable very directly what the amount of CO2 consumption is about. Of course, you have all the FinOps data here, and you can enable new resources, which is very interesting also to close the loop with the automation. So anything that you have like a peak, for example, of consumption in terms of FinOps or GreenOps, carbon emission, you have a deep analysis of what has caused this. And here we have a little pop-up that pops up with a button where you can see the new resources and the resources that actually have triggered this spike in terms of cost or carbon emission. So this is where you enable this one, and you have also a compare option, which will compare, week after weeks or months after months to understand if the patterns of consumption is the same or not. And then you have, of course, the cost estimation that is enhanced with the electricity and also carbon footprint in terms of estimation before deployment. So depending on what are the instance type, what are the disk size, and so on, you are going to have also the cost not only the cost estimation, but the carbon emission estimation and the electricity consumed per month. That is going to be here, and this is all about making aware the end user how much carbon is about to emit with this. So it can, for example, a very simple action. So it's not represented here, but you can very easily change the region to find a region that emits less carbon, for example, and you will directly see the impact of this change, so which is good, of course, to emit less carbon. And then we have some indicators, KPIs, so the FinOps KPIs is also extended with GreenOps API for each project. So this is for a particular environment that has been deployed, and we keep track of the carbon emission and always with the equivalent in terms of flight from Paris to London. This is an equivalent here. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
Hi. So thank you for the presentation. Given that you have a lot of different customers, I was wondering if you've got some metrics to say how much euros I would spend to have, for example, 1 metric ton of carbon emitted, or this kind of equivalence. I think you've shown some of this stuff, but I've got some trouble understanding if I compare to my, for example, 2 metric tons, annual metric tons that I should spend as an individual per year. How would it cost in terms of infrastructure? Is it like 1 million euro infrastructure or a slower infrastructure? I don't know if it's a clear question, but
Yeah, I understand. The problem is it depends of the cloud provider that you are using and the region where you are located. And the thing is, things can change. As you know, the emission factor are not always the same. And even in France, we are using a different percentage when it comes to nuclear or carbon and all this stuff. So so far, what we try to do on our side is to give the first information. Okay, what is the right location to improve, and then on the recommendation part, and this is the second piece that we want to tackle, is that to retry all the data to bring more visibility about the location where you are consuming and what could you improve in terms of recommendation, in terms of location, and so on. But the problem is, again, it's quite complicated to compare something which is maybe not comparable when it comes to AWS, GCP, Azure, on-prem, and all this stuff. And by the way, the public states have invested us on the carbon footprint for OpenStack and OpenShift for on-premises. So it will also something which is taken in consideration. And we are working on our side for VMware, which is also another complex, different world where you should attack the servers and stuff like this and the API of concrete metrics. So the thing is, on our side, so far, the answer is no, but we are working on the recommendation aspect to give more visibility and more recommendation rather than just displaying, which is the first layer of the data when it comes to DEVOPS and FinOps, and help them at least try to tackle it. Because the question on our side, and we started by this, is that we need to take the time as a DevOps, as a FinOps, to make this improvement. And we all know that all the recommendation that we have is not something that we don't use, but we already know what we need to do to improve the way of how we use the resources. So I definitely think that first it's the first approach that we have to display the data, and then we'll bring more recommendation. The thing is on the quota management aspect for the carbon footprint, we have no one that used so far carbon quota management for the carbon footprint, because they had lack of visibility about whether their total carbon footprint when it comes to the last year and so on. So well, with the time it will come, but we didn't see any organization that set some quota on this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. In the situation where we have an application that is deployed inside a Kubernetes cluster on AWS or whatever, are you able to drill down at the application level to get the cost, the carbon footprint?
So today on the Kube aspect, we are integrated OpenCost, which is based on the open source software. Yeah, OpenCost, which is the fork of KubeCost, to integrate this and to be calculated not the application side, but the infrastructure side, which is defining by pod and resources what is the total usage, and including the aspect of cloud carbon footprint that we are working on dedicated to Kubernetes, which will be OpenShift and Kubernetes open source. So far, the two that we are working on. Thank you for the time, and have a wonderful evening.